Alright guys, today's plant of focus is Sun Hemp. There are many benefits and there are a few cons just like any plant. So let's get into the cons like I normally do. And first off, one of the cons is it is a non-native species, which kind of worries people about planting it in their food plots. This will not seed out because of our climate. So that can be a con if you're wanting seed. So there's a double whammy against you right there. This is a tropical plant and requires a warmer climate. So as soon as frost hits, it's done. It's over. And a light frost will really set it back, but a heavy frost, it's definitely clocked out. So another issue that can pop up with this, believe it or not, is a very similar issue like the buckwheat plant, is the rate of growth. Now, why would a stick be a problem? Well, for those of you that want pictures in your food plot of all the deer visiting, these things are a very bad plant to have in front of a camera. They sway back and forth and they will set your camera off. They grow so tall, especially with healthy soil. This is well on its way to 10 feet. But it can grow taller than that. So you're looking at a healthy range of 10 to 12 feet. Even if you get close to 10 and you're at 9, you're still in good shape. But it lets you know that you can still keep up in your ground levels just by how it's growing. Now, one of the things is this plant adapts very well to its surroundings. Soybean actually does something very similar to this, and that is bushing out. So if all that soybean was scattered way far apart, it would literally be a bush. And that is exactly what will happen with this. So if you plant it a little bit on the thick side in a summer blend, like what you see scattered here, too much of that will shade out the crops you want to keep. So be very careful about putting too much of it out. If I saw that all over your food plot, that consistency right there, that's way too thick, and you're going to be highly disappointed when your soybean starts getting choked out. So don't plant it a real heavy mix. I would probably keep it at 10% of your mix or less. So that can become a con in itself just because it gets so big. So this one is an example of bushing out. And this one's going to have eventually it's going to be really heavy and thick. It's already trying to thicken up now, but you can see the limbs shooting off of it. It's no longer a single stick, and that will continue to get bigger, bigger, and bigger. And these limbs will create limbs and so forth. It's just a domino effect. So eventually you'll have this big canopy top plant with big yellow flowers all over it toward the end of the season. Another thing is those flowers, if you're trying to find something to time with another species like soybean, these flowers do not open up in time for your soybean flowering. So these are one of the last flowering plants in my mixes. Other than that, it's buckwheat first and then soybean. So just be aware that that is a late flowering plant. And you won't get any seeds out of it because our climate just will not handle or give it enough time basically to develop seeds. Yeah, you will get those fuzzy velvety pods and they feel weird, but it'll have the mushy seed in them. They will never harden up to become actual seed. So don't panic if you think that you're introducing a species that's going to become invasive. It is not invasive. All right, so I think I have listed most of the cons, if not all of them. So let's move to the benefits. What is the benefit of putting this in my food plot? Well, there is studies that show when eaten in small quantities, deer actually have a digestion rate improvement over plots without it. It encourages good bacteria to grow in their guts. And that is what's going to make them a more efficient eating machine. So anytime a deer eats, let's say, one leaf right here in my hand, a healthy deer will digest anywhere from 60 to maybe 65% of that And now each plant has a different digestion rate. Soybean is like 63 to 68. So this is a little bit lower on average, but it will boost that bacteria. So let's say you raise it a couple of percent. I know it doesn't sound like much, but suddenly on the top end, you're eating 70% of that soybean. That's, to me, is that 2% really helps out in helping your deer push to that additional weight class or antler class if you're trying to get your bucks a little bit bigger. So you're making your deer more efficient as it's eating, which is a very, very good thing. Now, another thing this Sun Hemp is very good at is killing bad bacteria or funguses in your ground. These things will make your poor ground into tip-top shape by removing any underlying threats in the soil. So if you have a food plot to where you're fertilizing, you know, you're doing what the soil test recommends, and you're still seeing issues, like maybe that spot right there is a good example. It's kind of sparse. Germination rates are lower there. Growth rates are slower. You know, you get the whole issue even though I fertilize that. Well, it could be because of there's a fungus in the ground and it's hampering your food plot. So therefore, even if deer don't eat this, the benefits that the roots give you make the surrounding plants stronger. So therefore, your deer can grow larger that way. They don't have to eat it in order to get those effects. Now, another thing, this is classification as a legume, which is another plus in my book. So I have two species working in tandem in this ground to raise my nitrogen level. Soybean is a nitrogen fixer, and now I have Sun Hemp in this same blend. So I'm actually getting what is considered to be the king of nitrogen fixing. A very healthy pure stand, now this is pure stands I'm stating, will get you anywhere from 200 to 400 pounds of nitrogen per acre. That depends on how tall it grows, how thick it is. So there's all kinds of variance, and that's why it varies from 2 to 400. On general, I would expect 200. I would be very happy with that. That is better than any of the nitrogen fixing guys I got out there. So this is going to speed up my soil improvement program because it dumps extra nitrogen in the ground. So now I have nitrogen that is being pumped down into the ground to feed soybean if the soybean cannot make enough nitrogen for itself. If both of these are adequate, then it moves to my next species, which is the buckwheat right there. So something somewhere will benefit from these plants. So now you can see how these pieces to the puzzle are starting to come together. There are other benefits, and that is also the rate of growth. I know I listed it as a con earlier, but it is also a plus. If you clean the table, and you need to be careful about this, cleaning the table in your food plot is never a good idea. But if that's your only option and you feel like you can't get out of that, then you need something to grow quickly. Buckwheat and Sun Hemp are those two options. So you can see here, the growth rates are slowed a bit because, well, the deer's basically destroyed that over there. It's no longer groundhog damage at this point. But look at how much taller Sun Hemp has gotten than the surrounding vegetation. So you can add a quick burst of food by putting Sun Hemp in your summer blend. And followed up with buckwheat, you will have two species that can quickly bring deer back to your food plot. It is, in my opinion, it is a very bad scenario if you're constantly cleaning the table to switch your crops out. That's why I leave 24/7 food available in my food plots like I do now. So even though I'm cleaning the table in 85% of it, I still have a 15% buffer in the clover area. Now another thing is you can use these for screening. Now you need to be careful. Pure stands will work sometimes, and sometimes they won't. It just depends on the winter conditions that arrive. This becomes brittle, like I've mentioned before, and it will snap under the weight of any snow or really bad windstorms. So if you plant this in your screening walls, it actually still works great because it has something it can lean to, and the Sun Hemp acts like a catcher's mitt when it comes to the sorghums wanting to fall over. So I have little catcher mitts all smattered through there, even though this is not the healthiest looking screening wall. I'll get into that in another video. But this is a very good plant to have in a mix. Even if the deer don't eat it, if you're going to say deer are in my food plot but not eating this plant, I have just wasted my money. That is not true. Even if they do not eat it, and they don't eat a lot of this, which is fine by me, the surrounding plants will thank you for it, okay? So I'm willing to sacrifice something in here that is maybe not on the upper end of their tolerance level or something they may like. However, I will note on a positive for this, since I planted it more sparsely like this, the rates of consumption of this has increased. They did not like my pure stands when I had it stripped out into walls. So I believe I have covered just about everything on this. Like I say before, growth rates are fantastic. These are big leaf sizes, so you have quite a bit of food you can give a deer. So there you go, guys. Plant of the day, Sun Hemp.